Welcome to Inside Scoop, Virginia. My name is George Burke. I'll be your host for the next hour. Tonight is the night where we just sort of dump on the Republicans. It's the night before the election. We're going to talk about a few of their dirty tricks, some of their nasty mail that they've put out. I got a stack of it on the table. And joining me to trash them is Ginny Peters, the esteemed chair of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee. Welcome, Ginny.
Thank you.
Let's get right into it. We got a lot of close and tight races going on. I think the Democrats have the edge in most of them. That's all dependent on you, the voters, whether you get out there tomorrow. So we need a strong Democratic turnout. But there has been some real nastiness this year. Of course, the mainstream reporters have loved it. It gives them something to write about. They dwell on some of the stupid stuff instead of the issues sometimes. But, you know, they say political reporting is horse race reporting anyway. But, you know, one race in particular that we'll start with is George Barker's race. George Barker is challenging incumbent Jay O'Brien. That's in the 39th Senate District. George has run an absolutely superb campaign. It has been a well-oiled machine. I don't think anybody has knocked on as many doors as George. They'll all tell you they have, and certainly Janet Olazak and Chap Peterson have jumped on a bunch of them. But George literally runs between houses. In fact, you can tell when you see him, he's lost some weight. He looks like he's in great shape.
Yeah.
And
he's come to parties where his shirt has been so wet his wife had to bring an extra shirt for him because it was a fundraiser, and he's been going door to door. So.
Well, I was just down at the Barker headquarters a few minutes ago, coming back from Prince William County. Their headquarters is in Springfield, and it was amazing to see the level of activity. The people on the phones. They had gone out and bought a bunch of these cell phones, and literally they had to buy more minutes for them. They'd already used up the minutes. So what do you see in that race?
Well, I see an incumbent who's pretty desperate. He's thrown, what, 4 or 5?
Oh, at least, and we only have some of them.
Yeah,
you know.
we
George
don't
Barker
have all
wants you to sign a blank check. You know, it blames George for everything. It's as if George was voting in the state Senate against, you know, all these things from mass trans, all the things that George would support. They're literally O'Brien suggesting he opposes, even though George hasn't had an opportunity to vote on anything. You know, the right way, the wrong way. The thing that I particularly like to highlight, though, is Jay O'Brien is fighting abuser fees, it says. Well, it's about time he's fighting him. We voted for him to start with.
Right.
I mean, the negative mailing, there's just so many lies that are being thrown out there. I don't want to suggest that there's no negative mail coming from the Democrats. I would suggest that in most of the cases, though, there's some fact involved in it, fact-checking and the like.
Right, right. We have a research team in Richmond that checks all that stuff for all of our candidates.
And many of our candidates double-check and triple-check the opposition stuff as well. Right. Most of it's true. Usually when the Republicans protest the most is when you're hitting them hard with the truth.
Yes.
Unfortunately, if the Republicans package the truth, that nobody'd vote for him, you know, in terms of their truth.
Well, it's interesting that they don't want any taxes. They put fees on everything to avoid saying they're going to raise your taxes. But the fairest way for people to get a good transportation system in this county is to raise the gas tax. Our candidates don't want to say that. Their candidates don't want to say that. But by golly, user fees?
They are taxes.
They're not, and they're not effective. They're having.
You had talked about. You had talked to a couple of your friends who are judges.
Right.
And what did they say about these abuser fees?
They said that they're not very effective because they have trouble pinning the people to the offense to use the abuser fee because they don't always submit the right evidence that they need to say, well, they're a resident of Virginia, so we're going to, you know, hit them with a $3,000 fee. So unless they get what they need, and they can't ask for it, it has to be presented to them, evidently. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, as I said, I think Barker has run just a fabulous campaign.
Right.
And I'm going to predict right now that he's going to be a victor when the polls close tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
I agree.
I don't think, I don't want to suggest there's no doubt. We can't tell, depending on what the the weather is like, depending on whether people make it out to the polls. It's going to be a little blustery tomorrow. So I hope that people will just put on a warm coat and get there. This is traditionally a very low turnout election, the lowest of the
lowest
low.
in the 4-year cycle, right?
And,
right.
So
and it's so ridiculous because this is the election that affects people the most. Local government, state government, they all look to the national government. It rarely hits them.
Part of it's the nature of the beast that we live so close to Washington, so many people work in Washington, so many new people move in and out of this area that in fact they view us as just an extension of Washington. And of course right up to literally where I live in the Mason District, that's about where the line of the original District of Columbia was, you know. In fact, Fred Middleman lives right on it. Yeah. I want to suggest if anybody wants to take some shots at us, you can give us a call at 571-749-1166. With our collective years of working for the Democrats, I'm sure there's some people out there who may want to take a shot, and you're welcome to if you want to. At one point, somebody was suggesting on the blogs that one of the bloggers come on. I was waiting to see whether he was going to show up tonight, but I guess he's not. You know, we've got another race that I think I'm ready to suggest the winner as well, and that is the 34th Delegate District, which is McLean and all that area up there.
Tysons, yeah.
In fact, I think it runs all the way almost to the Arlington line there.
And all the way through Great Falls.
Yeah, and that's Margie Vanderhyde, the Democrat, versus Dave Hunt. Margie's run again a picture-perfect campaign. She had a primary that was not negative.
No.
With Democrat Rip Sullivan, and there were two fabulous candidates there. I mean, it was a shame we couldn't have had them in different districts.
Right,
but,
we wanted to move one of them.
Yeah, and but they were both good candidates. I think we'll see more of Rip, and Margie came out the victor, and again, she's just run a good campaign. She's raised the finances she needs to run it effectively, and I think she's right on the issues. Meanwhile, Hunt has just started throwing mud at her, you know, suggesting, you know, talking about lawsuits and the like, attacking her husband, and it's all untrue. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's absolutely untrue, and they're getting away with it.
He is.
They're going to get away with it till Election Day, and I think the voters are going to see right through this crap, to tell you the truth.
Right. I think they're really incensed at all the negativity. He has nothing positive to say about what he'd like to do. It's all, Margie will do this if she gets elected, Margie will do this, da-da-da-da-da.
Well, would you want to run on the Republicans' record?
No.
Coming out of Richmond? I don't think I would. No. I don't think the voters are going to buy it either.
I don't think
But I mean, you know, it's almost like it's a waste of money, you know? Yeah. I mean...
Well, to tell you how what a campaigner she is, my office is next to hers in the space that we've been given. That woman comes in at 10 o'clock in the morning. She spends until noon on the phone, goes to lunch with somebody that's going to contribute money to her campaign, comes back, stays on the phone, goes out and goes door to door from 4 until dark. I have never seen anybody work so hard.
Yeah, she's day in, day out. I can attest I've seen that as well.
Really good campaigner.
Another race that I think is a sleeper, I'm not prepared to call it, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than some people suggest, is the Mike McClanahan-Pat Herity race, which is the Springfield District Supervisor's race.
Right.
Elaine McConnell has represented that district for I don't know how long, years.
16 something,
yeah.
16 or 20, something like
that. And she was a moderate Republican, tended to vote with the majority quite a bit. And when she opted to retire, in fact, before she opted to retire, Mike McClanahan decided to throw his hat in the ring. This is his first run.
Right.
And, you know, where I live, I don't get a lot of feel always what's happening in Springfield. So again, I was at his headquarters today, and all of a sudden I saw he's got a whole bunch of mail out there on the street, about 4 pieces, positive pieces about him.
Right.
And Herity has apparently hit the streets with 1 piece, and you know, I just don't know where he's literally coming from. You know, he came out early and made some pretty outlandish statements and about what he would do. And from what I understand, he's backtracking on them now. And I don't have all the details on those statements, but I'll tell you, McClanahan has surged, at least in terms of how his campaign is moving, and I just see the momentum moving in his direction. And I don't think the public truly, there's so many new people who live down there, I'm not sure that they recognize the Harity name, and of course that's a minus with many voters who do remember it.
Right. Jack Harity was an institution in Springfield when he was supervisor and when he was chairman of the board. But how long has he been gone, for heaven's sakes? 8? 16 years?
I mean, he got a little bit of mileage out of it, and a couple of papers did profiles on the old man and talked about him.
Right, and the old timers are going to remember the name. But, you know, they always say, just because, you know, you are related or you're a friend of, doesn't get you votes.
Yep, no doubt. Plus, this Harity has hair. The other one didn't.
Yeah, the other one was quite bald.
And, you know, McClanahan has some good stuff. I mean, he talks a little bit about Harity. And, you know, Harity wants to cut Metro funding. You know, I mean, he said it. He said it in the Washington Post. I think he's backtracking on this stuff now. You know, Harity has, you know, these guys all attack developers. Well, Harity's taken developers' money as well, and you know, Jack Harity never met a developer that he didn't want to help him build something with.
That's right.
So it's, you know, some of this stuff is just ludicrous. They'd be better off just dealing with the issues, but he's not.
Yeah.
And
can't find any issues in that race that Harity's willing to talk about.
So I'm going to suggest that one, I'm going to keep that one in the toss-up column. I just don't have a good enough feel to know whether or not who's going to win that. And I certainly hope that Mike does, and I know Mike's working real hard. But like I said, when I went down there and saw that they've been putting out this mail and the like, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive. It was just a lot of things we didn't see because it's contained in that one district.
Right.
Then we have another supervisor's race here, Joan Dubois and John Faust. John's a good guy. I think he's going to edge her out, to tell you the truth. He came awful close last time.
Yeah, I think he will this time. And one of the main issues in that district is that tunnel. And we feel, a bunch of us around that area, when we see people coming in to help John Faust, they have these little green round circles on the back of their car that says it ain't over till it's under. And they're very adamant.
Well, one of the interesting things about that is Joan Dubois says, I strongly support the tunnel option. Well, the fact of the matter is, I remember the vote.
Yeah,
and she voted against the tunnel. Now, I'm not suggesting that was a right vote or a wrong vote, but I'm suggesting that she's lying here.
Yeah, well, and she didn't need to vote that way.
Correct.
What was it, 7 to 2?
They had
7 to 2?
Yes, I believe that's what it was. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is Faust has supported the tunnel from the beginning. In fact, he's irritated a few politicians because he's been so strongly supportive of that. While she's suggesting he has done nothing. Well, he hasn't had an opportunity to vote on it or do anything else. Right. So it's a little duplicitous. First of all, it's an out-and-out lie in terms of the position she took. And second of all, not telling the truth. Right. Anyway, we'll be back in 2 minutes. Please stay with us. Thanks for watching.
This is Mommy's bed. Me and Jenny were jumping on it. Mommy's gun fell on the floor. I was a cowboy. Bang, 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 bang. I said, Jenny, wake up, it's just pretend. But she wouldn't wake up. If you give me a fish...
If you give someone a fish...
You feed them for a day.
Teach someone to fish.
You feed them for a lifetime.
Give me a fish, and you'll feed me for a day. Teach me to fish, and you'll feed me for a lifetime.
Through Volunteers of America, you can help change lives in your community.
Oh,
Hey, mister, studied algebra in school and got a better job than I could. You take the last couple.
Oh, no, mister. Stuck in an entry-level job because you only learned basic math. I don't have a boss riding my butt like you do, so you take it so you can get back to your desk.
You know, I probably should, but maybe Miss AP Calculus with the $200 haircut in the big office upstairs would like a cup.
Oh, no, Mr. What was your name again? Never mind, it doesn't matter. I'm too busy doing important things to care. I just came down for some sweet and start.
You know, if my limited math abilities weren't keeping me from getting a better job, I'd quit this afternoon.
I don't blame you. But thank goodness you're stuck here because we really need someone to make the coffee.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm George Burke. I'm your host. Joining me tonight is Ginny Peters, who's chair of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, and we have a guest who's just joined us, Dale Evans, Democrat running for Clerk of the Court. Dale, you have a special message you want to give to somebody.
Yeah, George, if I could. I don't know if my daughter's going to get this or not, but I'd like to say to her, thank you for being my daughter. She's in the hospital, in Fairfax Hospital. She's got some stomach issues, and I'd like to tell her I love her, and I hope she gets well.
As long as you're here, we'll talk about your race. I think that you've got a definite shot here at winning this race. You've been on the program with me a couple of times, and we welcome you back. And, you know, here's another one. Fry, it's surprising to see a negative occur in the race for Clerk of Court. You'd think that to a degree they'd be above that. But he says some awful nasty things about you. But when you look at the fine print, you realize he's quoting Republicans and the like, number one, and he's quoting people from 1982. Half the voters weren't even born in 1982. And that tells me something right off the bat. It tells me that he is scared.
He's desperate.
And he's got some good reason to be scared. You know, there's a lot of changes that need to be done in that office. We talked about that before. But why don't you just give us a quick overview again? And, you know, this is the night we trash the opponent, so feel free.
Well, thanks, George. I appreciate the time. One of the first things I'd like to say is I got into this race in August at the request of the Democratic Party, and I got the nomination. I couldn't be where I am today, and I think we're going to have a very good result tomorrow. But I couldn't be where I am today without the help of Ginny Peters and the Democratic Party. They have been phenomenal, and she's shown great leadership, and I thank her and appreciate her support. We've tried to keep this campaign focused on the issues, and we've tried not to get personal in this campaign. I've talked about the mismanagement of the clerk's office, which I think is a viable issue that everybody should be talking about. I've talked about waste of taxpayers' dollars. The present clerk has wasted, by the end of this year, it'll be close to $10 million on a computer system that's not working. And I've talked about him selling Social Security numbers around the world. I've talked about him failing the audits of the clerks in the clerk's office by the auditor for the Commonwealth of Virginia. These are issues. I don't think these are personal. And I'm a little taken aback by the fact that this weekend he came out with such a scurrilous piece. I mean, it shows desperation and frustration on his part. I understand that with people. You know, I don't want to go there. I want to keep this campaign at an upper level where we're talking about the issues of the clerk's office. I'm going to go in there and make improvements. We're going to keep the clerk's office open later so that the residents of Fairfax County have access. We're going to get a computer system that works and worked with the whole state and works with the state Supreme Court and isn't just a computer that the clerk of the county thinks he wants, so he goes out and buys it, and then it doesn't work from the day he's put in. You know, the bad thing about this is I've been to almost any place someone's had a barbecue. If two or more people get together, I usually show up. And I've been to a lot of meetings with Democrats across this county. And one of the things that resonates in many of the local races is that this computer that the clerk has been giving bad information to the state Supreme Court. And it's raised issues for Ray Murrow. Ray Murrow is one of the finest prosecutors in the state of Virginia. Bob Horan has 40 years of just exemplary service. And now we have an upstart candidate who's got less than 2 years of experience practicing law, who is, by the way, the selected candidate and put forth by my opponent. Mr. Fry went out and got him and solicited him, got him into the race. And when he's approached about, you know, he wants to talk about, well, you have to have a lot of experience to be in government. And somebody says, well, Mr. Fry, you know, Pat McDade has no experience. He's been out of law school 2 years. Mr. Fry's response was, well, he's a family friend. Well, you know, we don't need family friends. What we need is competent public servants to run the inn, and Ray Murrow is that person. Ray Murrow is fantastic. And this computer system that's there has so skewered the numbers out of the legal system about how many prosecutions we have and what's going on in the legal justice system in Fairfax County that it's really raised issues that don't exist. I mean, this is a fantastic prosecutor's office. I think if people look across Fairfax County, they'll realize it's one of the safest places to live in the United States. And that's because of Bob Horan and Ray Murrow. And so my opponent sort of put his fingers into some messy pies, and so, you know, I hope he has to deal with that later, because this computer system and his management has just caused real problems.
Well, the fact that he's raised issues that don't exist, I think all the Republicans are raising issues that don't exist in their mail this year. And I was just a little surprised to see him come after you like that. It literally, it shows me that he's got some concerns. I think it's, to the best of my knowledge, it's the only piece he put out. It was probably thrown together in the last days of the campaign when they started seeing some numbers that, you know, they got pictures of you here. You can barely see your face. You need a magnifying glass to do it. They did a good job on the Photoshop on that. Meanwhile, Fry looks like a choir boy, and I think he's running scared. And like I said, you came into the race late. Thank God you came in. There was a need for a strong candidate. You came in, you hit the ground running, and you've been kicking butt and taking names since. And you know, I've seen the mail that's come to my house. I received a piece of mail from you today, in fact, and it's positive. It highlights your association with Penny Gross and with Ray Morrow and with other Democratic candidates who are highly respected. And you know, I think you're going to get the vote on Election Day.
Well, I certainly hope so, and I think
I don't want to jinx you.
No, well, I appreciate that. You know, and we're not taking anything for being overconfident. You know, it's the voters of Fairfax County and their opinion of what's going on that matter, and I'm hoping that I gain their trust and they vote for me. That's what I'm hoping to do. But you know, the interesting thing is when we look through all these pieces of literature, the interesting thing is all the Republican literature is based on attacking Democrats. While the Democratic literature, we talk about the leadership we've shown and the kind of leaders we have. I mean, we have, for example, people supporting me are Mark Warner, Tim Kaine, Ray Murrow, the sheriff of this county, the police, the fire department, the state police. I mean, we have real leaders in this state, exactly. We have real leaders in this state that come to us and support us. And right now in the Republican Party in this state, there's just not much leadership. And they don't have anybody that they can have come in and say, this is a credible candidate. You know, my opponent doesn't list his endorsements because he's only gotten 2 endorsements since he's announced for office.
He's been in office for 16 years.
For 16 years.
And Mr. Invisible.
That's incredible.
Right. I mean, he aligns himself with, when I was on your show a couple weeks ago, we talked about this whole issue about Mr. Fry not stopping Ken Cuccinelli when he came in and made some assertions that he was exempt from grantor's tax. Right. And Cuccinelli didn't pay his grantor's tax, and the clerk didn't call him on it. And then Mr. Cuccinelli, you know, got a windfall profit of $25,000 from a person that he'd carried legislation for and never disclosed this on his state disclosure form. So, I mean, you know, I wouldn't want to have those people endorsing my candidacy. What I like to look at is who's endorsing me and who's endorsing Democrats. People beyond reproach. Mark Warner, Tim Kaine, Jim Webb. I mean, you know, these are great leaders, and they've done great things for Virginia, and I think we have a lot to be proud of.
Right.
Well, you know, let's talk about the Janet Olezek race for a couple of minutes. Cuccinelli was on this show with Janet. Cuccinelli's a trial lawyer. He's very well spoken. But I found, you know, I was pretty familiar with Ken Cuccinelli's record. And then when I heard him here, I thought it was like a different candidate. He literally was moderating these things. He supported one piece of legislation that he was, I think he was one of the patrons of, or co-patron of, where literally it would make a woman a criminal for any type of choice decision that she makes, even very early on in the process. And when she asked him about it, because it's a particularly heinous bill in my mind, and I think in the minds of most women and most responsible and reasonable people, he pretended he couldn't remember the bill number. She gave him the bill number, and he said, well, which year? There are 3 bill numbers like that. Well, he knew damn well which one it was.
Right.
And he just, shunted it off. And he was pretty good at that stuff. But I think ultimately his slickness is going to come back to haunt him this time, because he just does not represent that district. If he brings out his base, it's going to be tough. And again, I'm going to give a slight edge to Janet Olezek in that race. I think she's run a good campaign. She may not be the public speaker that Cuccinelli is. Again, he's a trial lawyer, and I'll certainly give him my respect from that standpoint. But when it comes down to the issues, and it comes down to how she would vote and what she would support, she certainly better reflects that district than any other, than Cuccinelli does, by a long shot. And let's just hope the voters recognize that. Again, our phone lines are open. I know it is the night before the election, and people are doing other things, certainly the activists are. 571-749-1166 is where you can call us. I want to talk about Jay Donahue and Tom Russ, but I want to wait for the break because we have some interesting pieces here. But we had talked about Margie Vanderhei, and more stuff, lawsuits. So her husband happens to be an attorney, but I think he's a patent attorney.
Well, George and Jenny, this is exactly what you're talking about in the Olezek. Here's a candidate who 4 years ago ran against Janet Howell and was a little bit to the right of Attila the Hun. And this year he's tried to relocate himself over to be a moderate. And I saw him out at Equality Fairfax espousing civil rights for gays and transsexuals, which we all support, but it's a little bit strange to see Dave Hunt move from this extremist Attila the Hun stand, where 4 years ago he was calling for these people to be sent out of our country, and now suddenly he's back on this side now trying to look like a moderate and telling people he has a kind heart. I've known him for 6 years, and I would love to sit down and dispute that issue with him.
It reminds me of, I think her name is Tricia Stahl. She advocates taking, she's a Senate candidate or a House candidate down in Hampton Roads somewhere. She basically advocates taking government out of the public schools. No funding.
Funding.
You might as well have people who the rich people get an education, and everybody else, pounds dirt. We're coming to the half-hour mark in our segment, and we're going to take a 2-minute break. I hope you'll stay with us. We're going to continue to look at some of these races, look at some of these negative campaigns, and feel free to get angry at us. We're here to, you can take a shot if you want to, but I doubt you can throw as much mud as these Republicans have. See you in a minute, 2 minutes.
Some people in Fairfax County don't know what public access means.
Some think it's just another channel on the dial.
But it's much more than that.
It's the voice of the people.
People like you.
Your neighbors, your friends,
or your family.
People who want to share ideas,
opinions,
cultures,
lifestyles,
art,
sports, music,
events, entertainment,
history,
science,
beliefs.
People who want to learn about television,
producing,
directing,
cameras, audio,
lighting,
editing, or radio, talk, music.
Whatever you think people should hear.
Public access is the place where everyone has a voice.
And it's the place where that voice gets heard.
A place where you can create your own form of personal expression.
So what do you want to say?
Whatever it is.
You can say it here.
Because we're public access.
For the people.
By the people.
It is about balancing our choices between the gray of the concrete jungle and the stunning beauty of the real one. Between a stoic facade of granite and the fury of the canyon. It's why there's EarthShare, the simple way to find balance. EarthShare is the workplace giving program bringing the leading environmental groups under one umbrella. Support EarthShare, support them all. EarthShare. Please ask your employer about workplace giving. To learn more, visit our website.
Thousands of kids in this country have everything it takes to go to college, except the money. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
George Burke. I'm your host. Joining me are Ginny Peters, the chair of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, and Dale Evans, who's the Democratic candidate for Clerk of Court in Fairfax. Dale, you've been out day after day pounding the pavement at these metros. What's the mood out there? What's the sentiment?
Well, that's a great question, because I've been out there for the last 3 weeks. Every morning I get out there at 6 o'clock. I'm there till about 9. And we have a corps of volunteers, and we're holding signs up, doing a lot of visibility, and it's been excellent. I mean, people are going by and they say, Democrat or Republican, and I'll say Democrat, and I'll get a thumbs up, and they'll say, I'm voting for you. I had one lady walk by me today, and she had taken a piece of literature from a Republican school board candidate. This was at Huntington Metro. And she came by and she said, are you a Democrat or Republican? I said, a Democrat. And she said, well, I only vote for Democrats. And I said, do you realize that that candidate that you took the piece of literature from is a Republican endorsed candidate? She says, oh no, I know, he wants to ban books in the library. And then she ripped up his card. I mean, it's a very positive response for Democrats out there. I had campaign people out this morning at Dunn-Loring, I believe it was, and I understand that Dave Hunt was there, who's running against Margie Vanderhei over in the 34th for the House of Delegates. And I understand nobody would take his literature. So it's a very, very good feeling out there to be a Democrat. And again, I go back to what I was talking about earlier. It's not because of Dale Evans necessarily. It's about Mark and Tim and Jim, their level of leadership they've shown in this county, the work of people like Ginny Peters, who's worked so hard to make Fairfax County a more progressive and a more open-minded area. And it's working, and I think that the voters realize that.
Plus, I think we have a good crop, a solid crop of Democratic candidates.
Yes, we do.
And I think you complement each other. You had an interesting story coming out of the Janet Olezek campaign.
Oh, yes. In the Chap Peterson headquarters today, they had 4 people come in. I don't know if it was all today, but in the last week, they have had 4 Republicans, identified Republicans on our voter list, come in, bring their signs, turn them in, and say, we want Chap Peterson signs. And getting back to the Margie Vanderhei stuff, this guy has sent out 30 pieces of literature. That's unheard of in a delegate race. I mean, the man has got to be desperate. And the last 4, 5, 6 of them have all been very, very negative.
I think it's unfortunate that these delegate races have escalated to the amount that they cost, period. But, you know, maybe I'm biased, but my view of this is it's the Republicans who've escalated it. They're the ones who are pushing these campaigns onto television, and once you get onto television, you're talking big bucks, any way you cut it. Even cable, to buy enough to really have a dent. We have a race, the clerk's race in Prince William, and one of the candidates bought television, and of course I immediately started freaking out until I found out they only spent $3,500 on cable television, which really isn't enough to make a mark. And the more I talk to people in Prince William, nobody's seen the ad. If you do it, you got to buy it big. And of course now we've seen several of these races. You know, Jean Marie Devilites Davis. I always say Devilites, so I get it wrong. She went on television first, which of course, first on the cable and then on the broadcast buy, and of course then Chap required Chap having to spend a whole bunch more money, Chap Peterson, to go on to cable and then to go on to the full television buy. And they're spending, you know, they're going to end up spending what, $1.5 million, $2 million by the time they're done. And it's unfortunate, but again, it's the Republicans who are escalating this stuff. And the problem is they're realizing as they get down to the wire that the Democrats are raising more money. That the people are moving in that direction. People are supporting Democrats. Republicans are supporting Democrats. I mean, in many of these races, my Republican friends, yes, I do have Republican friends, folks. My Republican friends are literally, many of them are voting for Democrats this time. That doesn't mean they always will, but they are just so disgusted with the crop of Republicans who are running that many of them are going to end up voting straight Democratic tickets right down the line.
Just before I came here tonight, I was sitting in Democratic headquarters, and the phone rang, and it was a man who said, I've never given a dime to a party. I've always given my money to a candidate. Where can I send a contribution to the Fairfax County Democratic Committee? I said, I'll be happy to take your money. And I gave him the address. And
did you give him my address?
People don't realize that the parties need money to spend as well. You know, I chair the 11th Congressional District Committee, which you'll hear more about us next year. As that race progresses. But, you know, we raise money which is then used to support the candidate, just like for FCDC, and there's 64 different combinations of candidates this year just on the ballot in various parts of Fairfax County. Let's talk a little bit more about Chap and Jean Marie. First of all, I'm going to make my prediction that Chap's going to win that one. And I think that the demographics are certainly there. I think that people aren't buying this transformation of Jean Marie from when she first ran. She was, again, to the right of Attila the Hun. And now you'd think she was a flaming liberal. And she, you know, she certainly has her husband's vast economic resources from his congressional campaign backing her up. And Chap Peterson hasn't raised quite as much money, but he's been competitive all the way through, and they've been resourceful. And again, you know, Chap is a hard worker. I remember a year ago on Election Day, he was out there working polls for other candidates, but you know, a lot of people knew him. He was out there working for other candidates then, certainly in those selected precincts where he was going to be running this year. And many of us were contacted very early on by Chap in terms of what he was going to do and soliciting support. And it's a knockdown, drag-out fight out there. You know, I mean, she published the names of his children and his whole family and address stuff.
Telephone number, the whole thing, and causing calls to go in there. And that was, quite frankly, reprehensible, I think. But in the 34th, I predict that Chap's going to take it. Let's go back to the supervisors for a minute. The first race we'll go to is the Connolly Bays race. I mean, Jerry's throwing a couple of love taps at Gary Bays, and God knows he deserves it. He used to be a Nixon administration appointee. He was part of this CREA, where the head of the Committee for Republican Environmental Action or something. He's a lawyer who represents the polluters. The polluters, right.
And Jack Abramoff was laundering money through the organization, and he maintains he knows nothing about it. I saw him at the Chamber of Commerce debate, and he was, you know, this is a group of people who are boosters of Fairfax County, and all he did was dump. If you listen to Gary Bays, you know, Fairfax was crumbling around us, and it just, I mean, he's theatrical. He's a trial lawyer, so he knows how to do this and do those types of things, but literally his issues are just not based in reality. And originally he sounded like someone who had a responsible position on illegal immigration. He's since talked to Corey Stewart down in Prince William, and he's learned how to be a fanatic very quickly.
I see.
And
well, that seems to be happening to a lot of their candidates. I mean,
they're all jumping on this immigration
thing?
bandwagon, and
it's not playing the way I think they hoped in Fairfax. It's playing a little better in Prince William.
The unfortunate part about the Dubois piece is that she likes to go out to Herndon and say that she supported the the labor center out there, and that she was there. And there were some Democrats out there who appreciate that. But now she's coming out and she's flip-flopped on this, and she's dropped a piece about illegal immigration. And she's trying to demagogue that issue like they've done in Prince William County. And hopefully John Faust is going to prevail in that race, and he should. The issues are all there, and John's a great candidate. But, you know...
Well, the Republicans in this county are seeing what's happening in Prince William, and they think, well, gee, maybe if we do that, it'll work in Fairfax County, too. And I think Jerry Connolly had the best idea of all. Let's enforce the laws that we have on the books. And then after Prince William passes this resolution and tells the police officers that this is what they're going to have to do, they go, oops, We don't have enough money to do it.
$14.5 million over 5 years. They've so far
Incredible.
approved $325,000 for the whole program.
Well, you know, in Fairfax County, Democrats have taken the lead on this issue. Besides Jerry Conley talking so eloquently on this issue and doing some great things on it, Stan Berry, our sheriff, has done some great things also. He's
responsible things.
He's working with the immigration people, the federal immigration people. He's doing things. He's not demagoguing the issue. He's not out there doing what the Republicans do, trying to beat and make people the issue and take these poor, unfortunate people and try to make them the issue of a campaign. Stan Berry's out there saying, let's go out and get people who break laws. Let's report them to the federal government. If they're illegal, let's send them where they belong.
Yes.
And that's responsible leadership.
Right.
And again, I go back to Mark Warner, Tim Kaine, and Jim Webb, Stan Berry, Jerry Conley. The Democratic Party has phenomenal leaders right now, and we are doing, I think, a great job. And once we win the clerk's office and make it a full sweep of Fairfax County, and we get a new computer there and stop selling our Social Security numbers around the country like our present clerk does, we're going to have great management all up and down the system.
Well, it's logical. I mean, I think the Democrats in Fairfax County have proved that they're fiscally prudent.
Exactly.
That they know how to govern. Fairfax continues to grow. The per capita income continues to rise. We're probably one of the places around the country that's been most immune to a lot of this subprime mortgage problems that exists. It's you know, and they get, Fairfax gets attacked. Oh, you're a haven for illegals. Well, that's a joke. We're a haven for people, many legal immigrants who are now very much middle class or upper middle class residents of this county and businessmen in this county from all over the world. And the diversity has added to the social fabric of Fairfax.
Right.
Well, look at the committees they have. They have a Korean Democratic Committee. They have the Arab American dinner every year, which all the candidates come to and speak. And they're involved. I understand there's a new Hispanic group that's forming. They're legal and they want to be part of this country. Why do we keep bashing them because they're illegal immigrants? You know, there are plenty of legal immigrants in this country who are law-abiding citizens doing the job they came
and they're
here
going to be caught up in Corey Stewart's dragnet.
Yeah, right.
You know, one of the most moving speeches I've ever heard, or comments that I've ever heard, is when Chap Peterson tells the story of his mother and father-in-law, who were two people in communist Korea, who walked across the border, moved to this country, started a business, and he was responding to the Republican Speaker of the House comment that foreigners don't have Virginia values. And Chap was saying, here's somebody who came here with his family, he built a business, he contributes, he pays taxes, he's a great American, and he's raised an incredibly wonderful daughter who's married to Chap Peterson. I don't know if they have other children, I haven't met him. But I mean, this is an American success story. This is what we tell our children. That's what America could be.
Right.
And Chap tells this story, and the first time I heard it, I mean, I actually had tears in my eyes. It's very moving, and it's what the Democratic Party's about, is supporting people who want to come into this country, abide by the law, work and make the best of themselves and contribute. And what the Republican Party is, where they want to go out and demagogue people because their skin color is different or they're from a different country.
And they're not going to do anything substantive after the fact. They had an opportunity in this last session. They couldn't get any substantive immigration bills passed through the General Assembly.
None.
And they had total control of both houses.
Right.
We are going to take one more break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. My guests are Ginny Peters, Chair of FCDC, Fairfax County Democratic Committee, and Dale Evans, who is the Democratic candidate for Fairfax County Clerk of Court. See you in 2 minutes.
This is Mommy's bed. Me and Jenny were jumping on it. Mommy's gun fell on the floor. I was a cowboy. Bang, 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 bang. I said, Jenny, wake up, it's just pretend. But she wouldn't wake up.
If you give me a fish.
If you give someone a fish,
You feed them for a day.
Teach someone to fish.
You feed them for a lifetime.
Give me a fish, and you'll feed me for a day. Teach me to fish, and you'll feed me for a lifetime.
Through Volunteers of America, you can help change lives in your community.
Oh, hey, mister, studied algebra in school and got a better job than I could. You take the last cup.
Oh, no, mister. Stuck in an entry-level job because you only learned basic math. I don't have a boss riding my butt like you do, so you take it so you can get back to your desk.
You know, I probably should, but maybe Miss AP Calculus with the $200 haircut in the big office upstairs would like a cup.
Oh no, Mr. What was your name again? Never mind, it doesn't matter. I'm too busy doing important things to care. I just came down for some sweet and stir.
You know, if my limited math abilities weren't keeping me from getting a better job, I'd quit this afternoon.
I don't blame you. But thank goodness you're stuck here because we really need someone to make the coffee.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop, Virginia. I'm George Burke. Ginny Peters, Dale Evans with me. We have a call from John from Annandale. John, are you there? Hello, John?
Yes.
You got a question for us?
I have a comment. I'm hoping for a response from both of them.
Go ahead. Let's hear your comment.
Okay. I want to talk about, first of all, I am a Democrat. I want to say something about campaign strategy. I think you're driving away votes with the automated phone calls. Those days are gone, and I think it's ironic that there are more signs on the median strip from the person running for Water and Soil Conservation Board. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I agree. Signs of pollution, and we hate to send those phone calls out to you, but if they didn't work, we wouldn't call you. And unfortunately, they do. But they're the type of campaign tactic that we all hate, but they do work. And somehow, particularly in Northern Virginia, where people lead extraordinarily busy lives, they spend too much time during the day commuting, and they are focused often on what's happening with the federal government as opposed to their local government. You have to get their attention. And in a low turnout race, you have to convince them to vote. And the beauty today is most people take these calls on their answering machine, and they can listen to them on their leisure, or they can hit the delete button. I know they annoy me too, and I've been responsible for sending some of them out, but they still annoy me, so I'm not going to disagree with you. As far as the signs, I want to assure you that I don't think there's a Democratic candidate in Northern Virginia who will not have their signs removed by the close of business the end of the week after the election. They tend to get them out they tend to get them off pretty quick.
Right.
I'll tell you what though, where I live, I have signs on my property. I think the signs that carry the most weight are those that are literally in front of someone's house.
Yeah, in yards.
In yards. Right. And I find I have a Penny Gross sign. I live in Mason District. I have a Jerry Connolly sign. I have a Dale Evans sign. I have a Bob Hull sign. And I mean, you can only put so many signs on your lawn. But I find that the Republicans then try to cluster them around it, and they're on other people's property who I know, just aren't paying attention because there's a hedge in front of the house or something. And they put them actually on the property of a private school that they come out every other day and they take them down, and then the Republicans come back and put up a bunch more. Let me say something about signs. Certainly they help with name recognition and visibility, but signs don't vote.
Right.
And the fact that somebody has more signs than another is no indication as to who's going to win, believe me on that. But I share some of your concerns, John, that there are too many signs out there.
I would love it if all of our candidates could just call voters and say, would you be willing to put a sign in your yard?
Mm-hmm.
I'm much more cognizant of my neighbors that have signs than I am of the trash that's on the highways. And it sends a message to your neighbors. It says, I think these are good people. I'm going to support them. I'm putting these signs out here in the hopes that you'll do the same.
And if you live across from Dale Evans, call him tonight. He'll put a sign out there tomorrow. I mean, across from John Fry, Dale will have a sign out there.
Well, let me just say, if I could, George, I mean, I would love to not have signs up.
Right.
I hate signs. I got into this race in August. I had 2 months to elevate my name ID. The unfortunate part about it is a Republican incumbent who's been there for 16 years, you know, is my opponent. I had to get some way to let people know about the clerk's office. The clerk's office in Fairfax County is the most important office you've never heard of. There are 800 duties that the clerk's office does every day, and it affects people's lives every day of their life.
Right.
When my opponent, I've gone around to places and I've said to people, I've said, you know, nobody knows who the clerk is, nobody knows what the clerk does. I've had the clerk sitting next to me and I've asked the people in the room, do you know who the clerk is? And nobody raises their hand.
Right.
Well, that's unfortunate. And when I've confronted my opponent with this, his response is, the people of Fairfax County don't need to know who the clerk is. And I think that's exactly opposite of what democracy is all about. So I've had to go out and I've had to make people aware of who I am. And John, I will apologize right now. I've done those calls. I've got Mark Warner and Tim Kaine calling me because they are strong supporters of mine. I've known Governor Warner since 2001 when he ran for governor, and I've known Governor Kaine since 2001 when he ran for lieutenant governor. And I consider them friends and supporters. I wish I didn't have to do that, but unfortunately in politics, when people don't have issues to run on, they resort to negatives. And the negatives that they resort to land on the last weekend because they know nobody has time to put together a quick mailer and get it out. There's only one way to respond. And the way you respond is with a telephone call. And I apologize to the people that are getting them. I wish I didn't have to do them. I would gladly support legislation that would stop the robocalls and stop yard signs and just rely on people listening to a discussion by the candidates about the issues. Here's the unfortunate part. Very few people will vote this year, according to how many registered voters we have.
Right.
People are disinterested about it. Nobody cares about the clerk's office as far as setting up forums and letting us come in and talk to. It's been very difficult to find places where I can debate my opponent for two reasons. One, nobody thinks about the clerk's office, and two, the clerk won't debate me.
Well, we invited him here.
Exactly.
We invited him here, and he declined. When we had you on the show, so you had an hour to talk to me instead.
Right. He's avoiding joint appearances. He has been now for the last couple of weeks of this campaign, and that's fine. You know, I just think it's the other way. I think you have to go out to the people. It's a politician and an office holder's obligation to come to the people that they represent and say, this is how I'm spending your money. This is the policies I want to implement. This is what I want to do. And if you don't agree with me, then vote me out of office. My opponent's too afraid to do that. I think many politicians are too afraid. They would rather demagogue us with issues that aren't relevant. They'd rather do what, is it Jay O'Brien who introduced legislation to stop illegal immigrants from getting into state colleges?
They already can't get in.
They already can't get in.
They can't get in.
I know.
Right, that's a
but
red herring.
he had to demagogue that issue anyway. So they would rather talk about those things than talk about many of the real problems that confront us.
Right.
I'd love to sit down with the clerk, and I have in a debate, and talk to him about him selling Social Security numbers all over the world that lead to identity theft. He doesn't want to talk about that. He gets all upset and starts screaming at me, and the discussion goes downhill. I would love to do that. So in light of that, we rely on signs and phone calls, and to all the voters out there who are listening, John, especially you for calling in, I apologize. I'd love not to have to do it.
Right.
We've only got a few minutes left, and we want to talk about a couple of other races. Jay Donahue. Jay Donahue puts out a piece. He's running in the 86th delegate district. He's running against an incumbent, Tom Rust, the architect of the abuser fees, the transportation abuser fees. Now he's running away from them, and he has chosen to go on the illegal immigration attack. First of all, Jay, anticipating that, puts out a piece, Real Solutions to Illegal Immigration. And he talks about crackdown on corporate employers of illegal immigrants, impose fines on those who break the law, help localities hire more occupancy investigators to follow along what Jerry Connolly is doing here in Fairfax. Verify the citizenship status of those who are arrested, put in jail, and the like. Mandate immigration training from the federal government for police and the like. And you know, it's a reasonable approach, and it's an all positive piece. Well, here's how his opponent comes back. Exposed Jay Donahue's support of illegal immigration. I mean, he shows guys jumping over fences, and you know, look at it. It's like the National Enquirer, you know? I mean, it's crazy. And then after that, he comes back, and this is my favorite. You know, why is Jay Donahue running a negative campaign? It works great all the time. What happens is the Republicans start a negative campaign, and then as they get near the end of the season, they accuse their opponents of running a negative campaign. This is unusual, mud on hands. It's an interesting piece. You know, Tom Russ deserves to lose after putting this crap out, and I'm going to predict that that win is going to go to Jay Donahue. I think I'm stretching a bit. It's close, but I'm going to predict that he's going to win that one.
But Jay's a great candidate. And you know, can we talk about this abuser fee for 1 second?
Yeah.
You know, this is the problem with the abuser fees, and this is the problem that the Republicans won't own up to. All of the tax dollars that are collected in Fairfax County go to Richmond. And those tax dollars go to other parts of the state to pay for their programs. We build their schools, we pay for their roads. That money comes out of Northern Virginia because we're the largest taxpayer. But
we're
yet when
the engine that makes this state run.
But when we need help here, when we need construction here of a rail, or we need roads improved, the results that we get from our Republican legislators in Northern Virginia is let's pass an abuser fee to tax the people who can't afford to pay this tax, and let's not levy a tax on the people downstate in Virginia to help pay for the things that we're doing up here, even though they take all of our money. It's oxymoronic. I don't get it. I don't get how people like Cuccinelli and O'Brien and Russ can do this. They'd rather tax the people in Fairfax County than go down and tax the people in Spotsylvania and other places in the state.
Because they're playing ball with the guys down the street. A couple of other races here. Jeff McKay is running for supervisor in Lee District. It's incumbent Dana Kaufman's seat. Dana's retiring. Jeff has been his chief of staff. He's running against a guy who really hasn't gotten much traction. Apparently he's fairly wealthy, but he just hasn't gotten any traction. And I think that Jeff's worked very hard. I think that's definitely going to stay in the Democratic column.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I've been down campaigning with Jeff. What a phenomenal candidate he is. He's a quality individual. The guy running against him seems to be a very nice gentleman, but you know Jeff has carved out a niche working with Dana Kaufman. He's done a phenomenal job. He's working hard, and he's going to be a great supervisor down there.
He just became a daddy.
Yeah,
he did.
Congratulations, Jeff. Congratulations. Yeah, he's a good candidate. He knows the job.
He does.
One other race, the Mason District Supervisor race. Penny Gross is running against a woman named Vellie Dietrich Hall. In the final days, she has just spewed lies about Mason District. Again, you'd think it was crumbling at the seams. You think it's crime in the streets. You know, it's all a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of lies, and that's what they do. They throw this stuff out in desperation at the last minute. So I put Penny Gross as victor in that race over Vellie Dietrich Hall. With 25 seconds left, I want to do one more thing, and that is I want to recognize Ginny Peters, many years for the Democratic Party, because at the end of this year, she is retiring from FCDC, but she's still going to be on my 11th District Committee, so you're going to see her here again. I thank you for watching. I thank Dale. I thank Ginny.
Thanks, George.
And we'll be back next week. Vote tomorrow.
Please.